Growing your short-term rental portfolio means finding properties. And the hosts who grow the fastest are not finding them the same way everyone else is.
The best short-term rental properties we know of never even hit the market. They went to a host who already had a relationship with the owner. No competition, no bidding war, no hours scrolling on Zillow.
And it's not luck. It is a strategy. And it is one you can build right now with what you're already doing.
We've been hosting for over a decade, built a multi-million-dollar portfolio, and work with hundreds of hosts who collectively generate over $2 million in monthly bookings through our private coaching program, Strategic Host. One of the properties in our own portfolio actually came to us this way.
Today, we're walking through 4 ways to find properties no one else knows about, starting with the one that got us our most profitable property yet. All right, so method number 1 is co-hosting as your acquisition strategy. Co-hosting means managing someone else's short-term rental on their behalf. Okay, so the listing, the pricing, the guests, the operations, all of it. One of the properties in our own portfolio came to us through this method. Actually, a few of them, but we'll talk about this one specifically.
The Audrey, as we have named her, is a property that Sarah and I own together in Columbus. And before we bought it, Sarah was co-hosting it for the owner, who we'll call Betty here.
I hope you named her Betty.
I know. Betty had bought this property originally to live in, and she started having kids, and she cared about this property, but she outgrew it. She wanted to keep it in her portfolio, and she actually hired a co-host before Sarah, but that previous co-host, they had been coasting. So Sarah came in, she found major improvements that she could make, and she did the thing. So she got rid of that terrible furniture. There might or might not have been a little bit of a rodent issue. Cleaners leaving old trash liners around in bins next to the gas. She could have simply walked away. Instead, she saw that diamond in the rough. She saw the bones of the property, the neighborhood, the location, and she wasn't scared, and she took it on.
I wasn't scared. Okay, so I wasn't afraid to take it on, but I did have some stipulations. I required Betty to reinvest in a deep clean, bring in an exterminator on retainer, and refresh the furniture. And those weren't optional. They were my conditions for taking on the property because my name was going to go on it. And once we got it to where it needed to be, the numbers went way up and stayed up, and I was very confident that was going to happen. Betty saw what the property was capable of when it was run correctly. That built the trust between us. When she was ready to sell, she wasn't calling a stranger, she was calling me.
Sarah asked her to pause and said, wait, before you do anything else and list it, would you consider selling to me before this goes on the market? And Betty said, of course, she would love nothing more.
She actually wanted to ask me, and she didn't because she was nervous about it. Yeah.
That is the co-hosting advantage. When you co-host a property well, you get to know that property inside and out. You know the revenue, the ADR, the occupancy. You know all of the expenses. You know what guests love. You know what needs work. And you know the owner. You also know all of the neighbors and how they operate around your short-term rental. When that owner is ready to sell, you are not a stranger making an offer. You are the obvious buyer. And this is an obvious win-win for all parties. Look, the property is already up and running as a short-term rental. There's no need to cancel reservations, do showings in between guests. You're saving on marketing fees, on agent fees, that time of uncertainty. It's just an easier transaction. You can hire an attorney, a flat fee, pain-free, and just transfer it over. Done, easy peasy.
And that is the part that most hosts miss. You don't wait for the owner to come to you. When you sense an owner might be moving on, and I could see the writing on the wall, having more kids, like wanting to spend more time. She wouldn't answer my emails, or I'd send her owner statements and she didn't respond. And I mean, I could just see it happening.
Interest was declining.
The interest in the short-term rental business.
Not that it wasn't profitable, that was awesome, but her life had changed.
Yeah, and she trusted me, which is great. But yeah, her interest was changing. So, and that's why I asked. And this became a practice of Annette and me after that too. Like when we, Annette would always ask, well, are they interested in selling? Or like, hey, I could see that this property isn't being managed right. We should co-host it and let them know that if they want to sell, we should be first right of refusal. Like it just became a part of our habit. And that's why we got the deal though, is because we put ourselves out there and just asked. The hosts who are too hesitant to have that conversation lose properties to people who aren't.
Method 2, be visible and vocal. This method, it's about the fact that you are always looking. Betty found Sarah on Instagram before they ever met in person. Sarah was using the geotag feature to show up in local Columbus feeds, posting about short-term rentals, showing her properties, talking about hosting. Betty saw it, reached out, and eventually that relationship became the Audrey. That deal came to Sarah because she had made herself findable. Being vocal goes beyond posting online. Show up in real estate networking events. Make sure that you're there and letting people know you're in the market. Make sure brokerages in your target market, they know your name and they know what you are looking for. Tell people at those industry events, at community gatherings, at your family gatherings, anywhere and everywhere. The more people who know what you're looking for and that specific type of property in a specific area, the more likely someone in their network surfaces something before it ever hits the listing site.
And when we say be visible on social media, we mean be specific and do it with intention. I wasn't just posting pretty photos of the properties that I was managing. I was showing the work behind the scenes. I was showing the turnovers, the inspections, talking through hosting decisions, the kind of content that signals to a property owner, this person knows what they're doing and that I would trust them with my home because they could see me caring about the decisions I was making. They could see my brand standards being upheld behind the scenes. That's what made Betty reach out. That's actually, Annette, your biggest client who brought you, 4+ units? That's why he reached out, because he knew that you were going to take it seriously, okay? So it's not about a follower account. Don't worry about how, quote unquote, big your account is. The demonstration of competence in the feed is what's going to get you your next property.
Yeah, and if nobody in your market knows you're looking, nobody is going to call you when something comes up. Be specific about what you want and consistent about showing what you do. The deal finds the person who's already known for doing this well.
By the way, finding the right property is only part of it. Making sure it performs once you have it is the other half. Actually, I would arguably say people, yes, you make your money when you buy, but it's running it like a business that keeps that money coming. This is the exact work we do with our private clients inside of Strategic Host. Join us live and see if it's the right next step for your business. The link is in the description. Method 3 is Facebook groups and online communities. Join the neighborhood groups in the areas where you want to buy, and then I want you to participate.
Yeah, you can't just be a lurker.
No.
That's what I do. I'm not a lurker in live, I'm a lurker online.
She is. It's okay. Actually, online, I'm better at participating, so it works out.
That's why we're a match.
Yes. When the time is right, let people know you're an investor looking for property there. Homeowners who are thinking about selling will often float the idea around a neighborhood group before they call a realtor.
Also, join local short-term rental specific groups. So you have your real estate generalist and then your short-term rental specific groups. There might be hosts there that are burning out, they're relocating, they're ready to exit that business completely, they're ready to just sell and buy another property. They're going to post in those groups before they list. And if you are active in those communities, you're going to see those posts the moment they go up, ahead of every buyer who's sitting there being passive, just waiting on Zillow. Conversations happen in these groups that don't happen anywhere else. Someone mentions a neighbor who's talking about selling, someone knows an owner who's been struggling with their current co-host. That information is only accessible to people who are already in those communities. Method 4, hire an expert. Work with people who know the business. This is likely one of the largest investments that you'll make, but it will pay off. A generalist real estate agent, yes, they can find you a house, but an agent who understands short-term rental investing can find you a property that performs. Those are two very different things, and it's worth taking the time to find someone who knows the difference.
What you want from an investment-focused agent is someone who can look at a property and tell you whether it makes sense as a short-term rental before you fall in love with it. Things like, what is a local short-term rental regulation situation and is it stable? What does the comp set look like in the neighborhood? Is this a market where guests are booking because of proximity to something specific? And does this property deliver on that? Can it be permitted? Those are the questions a generalist agent, they just don't know to ask.
beyond your short-term rental specific agent, there are tools like STR Insights, AirDNA. They are built specifically for investors in this space. They help you identify which markets are performing, what amenities are driving revenue in a specific area, and what the actual demand picture looks like before you financially commit. You're not guessing based on a gut feeling. You're looking at what guests in that market are booking and what they're paying for it. A cheap deal in a weak market, it's not an opportunity. And a well-priced property in a strong market with the right amenities is. The right data and the right agent help you tell the difference before you close, not after. And I want to share another story about property that we own. We worked with a gentleman in where our glamping site is. Sarah and I, with partners, actually bought 134 acres. That is a big undertaking, right? Well, at first, I have to admit, I was just going online and not Zillow, I was going to landforsale.com, true story, finding so many large plots of land with many, many, many acres, while our other partner was going to the experts. He was going to the locals. He was networking. He was finding the people that knew the land, knew the area, knew what was going on, while I was happy just looking online, being, just thinking I knew best. My partner, Mike, he literally, Sarah and I, he was in those groups out there networking and found an amazing property that had been owned for someone else for decades. It had been taken care of pristinely. It had electric, it had sewer, it had buildings on it. The stuff that I was looking at that I thought was a good deal had none of that infrastructure. It would have taken years and maybe never, because we might have not ever been zoned to be able to do the stuff that we're now doing. That was finding someone local in the market, an expert, and truly out there networking, letting people know what we were looking for and building those relationships. And actually, this particular expert that we found, we're still working with him today on more projects. And we started working with him over 4 years ago.
So there you have it. The properties no one else knows about are almost always the ones sitting inside a relationship that's already been built.
Not on Zillow or landforsale.com.
I mean, who knows? It just might take you longer.
Yeah.
Start co-hosting, make yourself visible, show up in the right communities, and work with people who understand what you're trying to do. The deal comes to the person who is already in the right place.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for somebody to list on Zillow to tell you what's available. Build the relationship and the deal finds you.
And inside Strategic Host, we help hosts get more nights booked, charge what their property is worth, and stop leaving money on the table. This is the exact work we do with our private clients. So join us live and see if it's the right next step for your business. The link with more information is in the show notes. And with that, I am Sarah Caracan.
I'm Annette Grant, and together we are
Thanks for visiting.